Hey YouTube, today we're going to go back to our series about reloading the 45 ACP. Today we get to play with the fun stuff, and that's the go boom stuff, and that's charging cases or loading your cases with powder. We've already gone through with cleaning our brass, resizing and priming, and today the big kick is going to be charging. This is really, by all intents and purposes, one of the most important steps, if there are any more important than others. This is where if you make mistakes or you're not analytical or you're not patient, bad things can happen. Obviously double charges or really just losing your place in what you're doing can cause catastrophic failures in your firearms. Loss of fingers, really the stuff that everyone warned you about reloading. So what I'm going to do today is actually going to be a little more analytical than I normally would be. I'm going to go very slow. Instead of using a powder measure, I'm going to, measure out with a spoon. My measuring spoon that came with my die set, every charge we load. We're also going to be using a Lee powder through expanding die. And what that does is it allows you to charge the case while it's in the press going through the expanding stage. With 45 ACP, what you need to do with the case, since the bullets themselves, they need to seat into the case, and the case needs to be belled to accept it. So what happens as we're going through with the use of the die we're going to use today, it actually bells that case ever so slightly, so when you go on to the next step, which is bullet seating, it accepts it properly, doesn't cause any malformation or anything bad to happen to that case. We'll talk about that as we go through it. I'll also go through one of the 2 reloading manuals I have out right now for 45 ACP, just to make a quick point that you can see dramatically different charge rates for the same powder by manual. That's something you as a new reloader need to kind of make a decision about for yourself. Personally, I prefer to load off my Lymans Manual. That's a little more conservative than Spear or some of the others. I prefer it that way. The 700X powder that I use and the bullets that I use work very well with the Lymans load data. I also run closer to the minimum than the maximum for charge rate. In load development, or when people are doing stuff or making their ammunition, more power to you if you run on peak. I personally don't. For 45 I shoot a lot, so I'm basically making plinking ammo. It gets more for me that I can sit and run through 150 rounds and have all my brass land on a 6" by 6" square if I'm standing static and shooting. That's handy for me. I don't really like hunting for brass. So, honestly, a lot of this stuff is subjective to an extent, where you'll have to find really what works for you. I'm showing you what works for me and what I like to do. I've reloaded tens of thousands of rounds for 45 ACP. I've never had a kaboom. I've never damaged a firearm. So, that's not a recommendation to do it exactly like how I'm doing it, but I just want you guys to know, the way I'm showing you how to do it is a methodical and proven method, I guess, for lack of a better term. So with that said, we'll move on and we'll start making some ammo. Thanks. So one thing here, this is my Lymans Manual. So you can see 45 ACP. And you also see we're going to be using 700X powder. One thing in these manuals, you'll see some powders in bold. And the powders in bold normally means that that's the most accurate load out of the group. Some manuals don't do that, some do. So really, in my opinion, just buy as many manuals as you can get. But one thing I wanted to show you here, we're going to be loading with a 230 grain total metal jacket. It also gives you your overall length from your bullet seat on this. We're going to run 700x powder, and we're going to run just a hair over the suggested minimum load, 3.6. I run 3.7 in that ballpark, and it shows you your velocity and the pressure in cup. Now, if we look at that, 3.6 is your minimum load with a maximum load for that powder of 4.8. So if we go and we look at a spear manual and we get into the 230 grain total metal jacket, we'll go down, we'll find 700X, and they're showing your minimum load, your starting charge, at 4.6 with a maximum charge of 5.1. So let's go back and make sure everyone sees the discrepancy there. You know, we're only talking about 0.3 grain on your maximum load, but in the world of making ammunition, 0.3 grain could be a big deal. So really, I suggest whenever you're starting to reload, start at a minimum load setting and work up from there. Don't go straight to maximum load. You're gonna make a mistake and something bad's gonna happen. So you know, the best advice I think I could give is start slow. Find a manual that you trust. You know, if you use spear bullets, you know, I use copper over cast bullets like berries, and I found that the Lymans numbers work very, very well for that. You know, I'm not trying to make knockdown power 45 ACP. I just want to make bullets that I can shoot the crap. So here we have my Frankfurt Arsenal, a small little digital scale. You know, most of the little reloading kits that you buy will come with a triple beam kind of like scale. I'm not a big fan. You know, I like digital. This thing was cheap. It was like 20-30 bucks. Obviously you can get better ones than this, but this one does what I need it to do. Comes with a little calibration weight so you can cal it. You can change it from grains to grams. You know, it really does everything I want it to do. It's small. You know, it's been repeatable. We've had it for a couple years with no issues. Okay, well, first things first, we're going to go ahead and do our sanity check on our scale. A really important thing here is if you're going to use a digital scale, make sure your power is reliable. If it's battery powered or if it's plug-in, you definitely don't want a poor battery to cause you, you know, issues with your load. So, you know, this one runs off AAA batteries. If it sits for a while, and it does have low battery indicator on it, but you know, I try not to ever let it get that far. I want to clean off the weight plate, make sure it's clean. Turn her on, and as you can see, right now we're in grams. Our calibration weight is 50 grams. So we'll get on there, 50.02, 50.03. So that we can live with. That deviation is okay. Take it off, back to dead zero. So we know we're good there. So the next thing you'll want to do is to get your measuring pan, sit it on there, and you want to tear it out. So that takes the weight of your measuring pan off. Okay, so next we have our powder out. This is a IMR High Score 700X smokeless powder. This was originally derived as a shotgun powder, but works remarkably well in some of the slower handgun calibers, especially 45 ACP. This is what I've used for a long time. I love it. It's good stuff. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this smaller container up with some of that powder. Since I'm not going to be using a powder measure, I'm going to be scooping. And this is a little scoop that comes with your die kit. And this comes usually very close to around that 4 grain ballpark. And then I'll just have to, you know, give it a little touch here or there to get it right where I want it. So with that, let's get her filled up and get going. So go ahead and load some powder into the tray I'm going to use. And that's, you know, I try not to take out much more than I'm really going to use in any given session when I'm loading like this. But this actually gives you a good chance to look at that powder as well. You know, cylindrical. This stuff flows pretty well. You know, when you're using a measure, it doesn't chop powder, so it works out pretty good. You know, it's good powder. I like it. We'll go ahead and get our scale on. Make sure we're showing a 0. I'll take my little measuring cup, get it nice and full, give it a drop. Actually, let me change it to grains first, and I'll show you using that little measuring device. I don't know if you can see with the lighting, but that takes us right to 3.7 grains, exactly what we were looking for. So we know in the tray we're good. So we'll go ahead and get a case set up, and we'll get that one loaded. And here we're looking at our powder through expanding die. Hopefully you can see that piece in there. So basically, as you bring the case up, this piece inside the die will actually bell that case ever so much so you can get the bullet seated. The handy part about it is it's open and it's relatively smooth, so you can actually charge your case while you're doing this step. There's not a whole lot of adjustment here. The first time you use it, you basically just set your depth with this, and that's really what controls it in the press. From that point, you just you're running cases through. So now we have all our unloaded pieces over here. So I'll go ahead and slide one in my number 2 shell holder. Push that case up. You'll feel a little bit of tension as it goes into the bell. And once you're in there, you just go ahead and charge your case. Give it a couple taps, make sure everything's good. And you'll also feel tension when you pull that bell out of the die. Pop. So there you have it. One loaded shell. So at this point, I thought I should stop and make a quick point. As you can see, all our uncharged cases are on one side of the press, our single stage press, and our charged cases on the opposite side of the press. This goes into talking about like loading blocks and other things like that. And really all that's trying to do is keep you organized. So as long as you're methodical and you do one step at a time going through this, you know, do you need loading blocks, things like that? You know, probably not. Are they nice to have? Sure. But you don't have to have them. So that's what I highly recommend, from at least when using a single stage, right to left, left to right, but don't mix things up. You have to create a separation so you remain organized. Another thing you can do here, as you're set up and you have a bunch of charged cases, you just do a sanity check and look at them and make sure they're all you know, in the same area. They have the same amount of powder. This is really your sanity check before you install the bullet and have a double charged kaboom go in your gun. Alright folks, well there you have it. That was charging a case and using the lead powder through expanding die. Just to recap, a couple things that are really important about this step is check, double check again. Like I said in the beginning, this is where accidents can happen, or you know, small mistakes in the process can cause dire consequences on the other end. So again, you know, find a manual that you like and you trust. Start slow, start on the low end of the spectrum and work your way up to where you think you need to be, and then just be careful, you know, and that's about it. You know, stay tuned for the next step. We'll be going and actually doing bullet seating and then doing a crimp, and then we're done. You know, then the 45 ACP is where it's at. You know, please comment, ask questions. If I can help, you know, please let me know. Thanks, guys.